Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the orbital station, Harmony, watching the blue marble of Earth rotate slowly below. The irony of the station's name wasn't lost on her as she prepared for what might be humanity's final diplomatic mission. 3 years had passed since first contact with the Zephyrian Empire, and despite humanity's best efforts, relations continued to deteriorate. The Zephyrians were a proud warrior race, standing nearly 8 feet tall with crystalline exoskeletons that shifted colors with their emotions. Their empire spanned 12 star systems, and they viewed humanity's rapid expansion as a threat to their dominance. What started as trade disputes had escalated into border skirmishes, and now the Empire demanded humanity's complete withdrawal from the disputed Kepler sector. Sarah's reflection was interrupted by her aide, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez. "Ambassador, the Zephyrian delegation has arrived. Admiral Vextar is requesting an immediate audience." Sarah straightened her formal diplomatic attire and nodded. "Tell them we'll meet in Conference Room Alpha. And Marcus, make sure our security detail maintains a respectful distance. We're here to make peace, not demonstrate force." The conference room was designed to accommodate both human and alien physiology. The lighting was adjusted to the blue-white spectrum preferred by Zephyrians, and the temperature was kept slightly cooler than human comfort levels. Sarah had learned that such small gestures often meant the difference between successful negotiations and diplomatic disasters. Admiral Vextar entered the room with his retinue of military advisors. His crystalline exoskeleton pulsed with deep purples and reds, colors Sarah had learned indicated anger and impatience. Despite his intimidating appearance, she offered a genuine smile and the traditional Zephyrian greeting, pressing her palms together and bowing slightly. "Admiral Vextar, thank you for coming. I hope we can find a path forward that honors both our peoples." The Admiral's response was cold and formal. "Ambassador Chen, my presence here is not by choice but by order of the High Command. The Terran expansion must cease. Your species' aggressive colonization threatens the natural order of this sector." Sarah maintained her composure despite the harsh words. This was exactly the rhetoric that had poisoned previous negotiations. "Admiral, I understand your concerns, but I must respectfully disagree with the characterization of our expansion as aggressive. Every colony we've established has been in previously unoccupied systems or established through peaceful agreements with local populations." Vextar's exoskeleton flashed bright red. "Your very existence is an affront to the established powers of this galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire has maintained order for over 3,000 years. We will not allow an upstart species to disrupt that order." The negotiations continued for hours, with Sarah offering compromise after compromise. She proposed joint colonization efforts, technology-sharing agreements, and even limitations on human expansion. Each offer was met with increasingly hostile responses from the Zephyrian delegation. During a break in the formal sessions, Sarah found herself in private conversation with Admiral Vextar. She had hoped that away from his advisors, he might be more receptive to peaceful solutions. "Admiral, may I speak candidly?" she asked, pouring him a glass of Aldebarani nectar, a delicacy she knew he enjoyed. Vextar accepted the drink but remained standing, a sign of continued distrust. "Speak, human. I've studied your people's history extensively. The Zephyrian Empire was built on principles of honor, strength, and protection of the weak. How does demanding our withdrawal from legitimately claimed territories align with those principles?" For a moment, Vextar's exoskeleton shifted to a more neutral blue-green. "You speak of principles, but you know nothing of burden. The Empire maintains stability across multiple species, multiple worlds. Your rapid expansion destabilizes that carefully maintained balance." Sarah saw an opening and pressed gently. "Then help us understand how to expand responsibly. Work with us to maintain that balance you speak of." Surely there's room in this vast galaxy for both our peoples to thrive. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, and Sarah dared to hope she had reached him. Then his communication device chimed urgently. As he listened to the message, his exoskeleton cycled through colors Sarah had never seen before, deep crimsons mixed with harsh yellows. "What is it?" Sarah asked, genuine concern in her voice. Vextar's response was barely controlled rage. "Your military forces have just destroyed a Zephyrian research station in the Proxima system. 43 scientists are dead." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. "That's impossible. I was assured by Earth Command that all human forces would maintain defensive positions during these negotiations." "Are you calling me a liar, human?" "No, Admiral. I'm saying there must be some mistake. Let me contact Earth Command immediately. If human forces were responsible, it was without authorization and—" Vextar cut her off with a gesture that in Zephyrian culture was deeply insulting. "The time for your words has ended. The Empire will respond to this act of war accordingly." Sarah's hands shook as she tried to establish communication with Earth. The response she received turned her world upside down. General Patterson's face appeared on the secure channel, his expression grim. "Ambassador, you need to return to Earth immediately. The situation has changed." "General, what happened at Proxima?" "Admiral Vextar says we destroyed a research station." Patterson's face hardened. "It wasn't a research station, Sarah. It was a bioweapons facility. They were developing a virus specifically designed to target human DNA. We discovered the facility's true purpose and had no choice but to act." Sarah stared at the screen in disbelief. "A bioweapons facility? But why wasn't I informed?" "Because we hoped you could still find a peaceful solution. We didn't want to poison the negotiations with accusations unless we were absolutely certain. But our intelligence was confirmed by a Zephyrian defector. They've been planning to eliminate humanity from the beginning." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. 3 years of diplomatic efforts, countless hours spent learning Zephyrian culture and language, all built on a lie. The Empire had never intended to coexist peacefully with humanity. Admiral Vextar's voice behind her was filled with cold satisfaction. "I see you've learned the truth, human. Yes, the facility was developing weapons. Weapons that would have ended your species' threat to galactic stability once and for all." Sarah turned to face him, her diplomatic training warring with her human emotions. "You were planning genocide." "We were planning pest control," Vextar replied without remorse. "Your species breeds too quickly, expands too rapidly, and thinks too highly of itself. The galaxy would be better without you." For 3 years, Sarah had advocated for understanding, for finding common ground, for believing that all sentient species could coexist peacefully. In one moment, those beliefs crumbled. The Admiral continued his verbal assault. "Your people's weakness disgusts us. You seek peace when you should seek strength. You offer compromise when you should demand submission. It is why your species is unfit to exist among true powers." Sarah's response was quiet, but carried a weight that made even the towering Admiral take notice. "Admiral, you've made a grave mistake." "And what mistake is that, human?" "You've mistaken our kindness for weakness." Vextar laughed, a harsh sound like crystals grinding against each other. "Kindness is weakness. It is why your species will not survive what comes next." Sarah looked at the alien who had just admitted to planning the extermination of her entire species. The diplomat in her died in that moment, replaced by something far more dangerous. She thought of her children on Earth, of billions of humans who had trusted in her ability to secure peace. "Admiral, I want you to remember this moment," she said with deadly calm. "I want you to remember that we offered you friendship, cooperation, and mutual respect. We offered to share our knowledge, our culture, and our future with you. She walked to the communication console and opened a priority channel to Earth Command. Her voice was steady as she spoke the words that would change everything. Earth Command, this is Ambassador Chen. Diplomatic Option Alpha is terminated. Repeat, Diplomatic Option Alpha is terminated. Authorization, Chen 77 Alpha. Implement Protocol Omega immediately. Vextar's exoskeleton suddenly shifted to colors Sarah had never seen before, pale whites mixed with deep blacks. In Zephyrian culture, these were the colors of fear. General Patterson's face appeared on screen. Ambassador, are you certain? Protocol Omega cannot be undone. Sarah looked one last time at Admiral Vextar, this being who represented a species that had planned to commit genocide against humanity. General, humanity's kindness ended today. What follows is no longer my responsibility. The transmission ended, and Sarah turned to leave the conference room. Behind her, Admiral Vextar called out, "What is Protocol Omega? What have you done?" Sarah paused at the doorway but didn't turn around. Admiral, you wanted to see humanity's true nature. You're about to get your wish. As she walked away, Sarah felt a profound sadness for what had been lost. Humanity had tried to be the better species, to prove that expansion and progress could coexist with peace and cooperation. But some lessons could only be learned through consequences. Behind her, alarms began to sound throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in red as automated systems announced the beginning of Protocol Omega. Sarah didn't look back as she headed for the evacuation shuttles. The age of human kindness was over. What came next would be something the galaxy had never seen before, and Admiral Vextar was about to learn why humans had earned the right to call themselves apex predators on their home world. In the distance, Earth's defensive fleets were already moving into position. The largest military mobilization in human history was beginning, and at its heart was a simple truth that the Zephyrians had just taught humanity. Sometimes, kindness was indeed a luxury that civilizations couldn't afford. 3 months after Protocol Omega's initiation, the galaxy learned what humanity truly was beneath its diplomatic exterior. Admiral Vexitar stood in the command center of the Zephyrian flagship, Dominion's Edge, watching his empire's greatest naval formation prepare for what should have been a routine subjugation of the human homeworld. His exoskeleton pulsed with confident golds and oranges as he surveyed the massive fleet surrounding him. 2,000 warships stretched across space like a metallic constellation, battle cruisers the size of small cities, each one capable of reducing a planet's surface to molten slag, fighter squadrons that numbered in the tens of thousands, mobile fortress platforms that could establish orbital supremacy around any world. It was a force that had conquered 6 different species and brought order to 12 star systems. "Admiral!" Commander Krelnax reported from the tactical station, his own exoskeleton showing the calm blues of confidence. Long-range sensors show minimal human fleet presence around Earth. Fewer than 300 ships detected. Vextar's satisfaction deepened. 300 ships against 2,000. The humans hadn't even bothered to mount a proper defense. Their weakness truly knew no bounds. "Commander, signal the fleet. We will establish orbital supremacy within 6 hours. Begin bombardment of military installations, but leave the major population centers intact. The humans will serve as an example to other species who might consider challenging imperial authority." What Admiral Vextar didn't know was that the minimal fleet presence his sensors detected represented the most revolutionary advancement in warfare the galaxy had ever seen. Hidden throughout the Sol system, humanity had deployed something that would fundamentally change the nature of space combat forever. Captain Elena Vasquez commanded the human flagship Retribution from what appeared to be an ordinary bridge. But appearances in warfare, as humanity had learned, were often the most dangerous deceptions. The Retribution was the first of humanity's new Phantom-class vessels, incorporating technology that had been developed in secret during the 3 years of failed diplomacy. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Kim Sato from the sensor station, "Zephyrian fleet approaching maximum engagement range. 2,000 ships confirmed, standard Imperial formation." Elena smiled grimly. The standard Imperial formation was designed to overwhelm enemy fleets through sheer firepower and numbers. It had worked for 3,000 years because every species the Zephyrians had encountered fought according to predictable patterns. Humanity was about to demonstrate why predictability was a fatal flaw. "All stations initiate Protocol Omega Phase 2. Inform Admiral Marcus that we are beginning the demonstration." Deep beneath the surface of Luna, Admiral Thomas Marcus monitored the approaching Zephyrian fleet from humanity's most classified military installation. The Moonbase Omega facility had been constructed over 18 months, hidden from alien sensors by ingenious use of natural lunar topography and advanced stealth technology. "Sir," reported Colonel Sarah Kim, "all Phantom units report ready. Ghost Fleet is in position. Shall we proceed with the revelation?" Admiral Marcus nodded. After decades of military service, he had hoped never to see a day like this. But the Zephyrians had made their choice when they decided to develop biological weapons targeting human DNA. Now humanity would show them the difference between kindness and weakness. "Colonel, signal all units. Initiate Ghost Protocol. Let's show them what happens when humans decide to stop being nice." In space around Earth, reality itself seemed to shift. What the Zephyrians had detected as 300 ships suddenly became 3,000. The Phantom-class vessels dropped their advanced cloaking systems, revealing the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. But even this wasn't the full extent of the surprise. Admiral Vextar's confident golds immediately shifted to shocked purples as his sensors recalibrated. How is this possible? 300 ships cannot become 3,000. Commander Krelnax worked frantically at his console. "Admiral, it appears the humans have developed cloaking technology far beyond our understanding. But, sir, our fleet still maintains numerical superiority." Vextar's confidence began to return. Indeed, 2,000 ships against 3,000 is still favorable odds given our technological advantage. All ships advance to engagement range. Show these humans the futility of their resistance. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. As the Zephyrian fleet moved forward, the human ships didn't arrange themselves in the traditional battle lines that every spacefaring civilization had used for millennia. Instead, they seemed to fade away entirely. "Admiral!" Krelnax's voice carried the high pitch of panic. "The human fleet, they vanished completely!" Vextar stared at his displays in disbelief. 3,000 ships didn't simply disappear. "Sensor malfunction. Run full diagnostics." "Sir, sensors are functioning normally. The human ships are simply gone." The truth was far more terrifying than sensor malfunction. Humanity had spent 3 years developing what they called the Ghost Fleet Protocol. Every human ship was equipped with quantum phase technology that allowed them to exist slightly outside normal space-time. They could see and attack enemies while remaining completely undetectable. Captain Vasquez watched the Zephyrian fleet advance blindly through space that now contained 3,000 invisible human warships. "All units, you are authorized to engage. Remember, we didn't start this war, but we're going to finish it." The attack, when it came, defied everything the Zephyrians understood about space combat. Their sensors showed empty space, but their ships began exploding in brilliant cascades of light. Human plasma torpedoes materialized from nothingness to tear through Zephyrian hulls. Particle beam weapons appeared for microseconds, long enough to slice battle cruisers in half before vanishing again. "Evasive maneuvers!" Vextar screamed, his exoskeleton now cycling through colors of pure terror. "All ships, random evasive patterns!" But you cannot evade an enemy you cannot see. The Ghost Fleet moved through the Zephyrian formation like death itself, picking off ships with methodical precision. Each human vessel could engage multiple targets while remaining completely invisible to retaliation. Commander Krell-Nax's voice broke as he delivered the casualty reports. "Admiral, we've lost 400 ships in the first 15 minutes. Our weapons cannot target enemies we cannot detect." Vexatar's mind raced through military tactics he had studied for centuries. Every principle of warfare demanded that you know where your enemy was before you could fight them. The humans had somehow eliminated that fundamental requirement. "Broadcast on all frequencies," he ordered. "Demand the humans reveal themselves and fight with honor." The response came from Captain Vasquez herself, her voice transmitted directly to every Zephyrian ship. "Admiral Vextar, you spoke of honor 3 months ago while planning genocide against my species. You called our kindness weakness. Allow me to educate you about human nature." As she spoke, the human attacks intensified. The Zephyrian fleet, once a symbol of imperial might, was being systematically destroyed by an enemy they couldn't even see. "For 3 years, we offered you friendship," Vasquez continued. "We offered trade, cultural exchange, mutual cooperation in exploring this galaxy. We offered to share our knowledge and resources. Do you know why we made those offers, Admiral?" Another wave of Zephyrian ships exploded as human weapons found their marks. Vextar's fleet was now down to less than 1,500 vessels, and they hadn't managed to damage a single human ship. "We made those offers because we are capable of being better than you," Vasquez's voice carried across the slaughter. "We could have revealed our military capabilities from the beginning. We could have demanded submission instead of seeking cooperation. But we chose kindness because we believed it was the path to a better galaxy." The casualty reports kept coming. 1,000 Zephyrian ships remained, then 800, then 600. The greatest fleet in Imperial history was being annihilated by enemies they couldn't even detect. "Admiral," Krell-Nax whispered, "perhaps we should consider withdrawal." Vextar's exoskeleton showed the deep blacks of despair, but his pride wouldn't allow retreat. "The Empire does not flee from inferior species." Vasquez's voice returned, now carrying a note of finality. "Admiral, you called us inferior. You plan to exterminate us like pests. But here's what you never understood about humanity. We didn't evolve as the dominant species on our planet by being kind. We learned kindness because we were strong enough to choose it." The human attacks suddenly stopped. 400 Zephyrian ships remained from the original 2,000, their crews traumatized and demoralized. Vextar dared to hope that perhaps the humans were offering surrender terms. "Admiral," came a new voice over the communications channel. This was Admiral Marcus, speaking from Luna. "You are about to witness Phase 3 of Protocol Omega. This is what happens when humanity decides to stop being merciful." The remaining Zephyrian ships suddenly found themselves surrounded by another revelation. The space around Earth wasn't empty at all. Massive orbital defense platforms materialized as their cloaking systems deactivated. Each platform was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that made traditional ship-mounted systems look like toys. "Impossible," Vextar breathed. "How many weapons platforms are there?" 47, Admiral Marcus replied calmly. "Each one capable of sterilizing a planet's surface. We built them during our diplomatic talks with you, Admiral. While we were offering you peace, we were preparing for the war you were planning." The weapons platforms didn't fire immediately. Instead, They simply waited, their targeting systems locked onto every surviving Zephyrian vessel. The message was clear. Humanity could have destroyed the entire fleet at any moment. "Admiral Vextar," Admiral Marcus continued, "you have two choices. Order your remaining ships to surrender immediately or watch them be destroyed along with your flagship. But before you decide, I want you to understand something about the species you chose to threaten." A holographic display activated, showing Vexitar images from human history. Ancient battlefields where humans had fought with primitive weapons. World wars that claimed millions of lives. The development of weapons capable of destroying their own planet. "We are a species that fought our way to the top of the food chain on a world filled with predators," Marcus explained. "We learned warfare by practicing it on ourselves for thousands of years. We developed weapons of mass destruction before we developed faster-than-light travel. When you threatened us, Admiral, you awakened something we had spent centuries trying to evolve beyond." The final revelation came as the human ghost fleet materialized around the surviving Zephyrian ships. 3,000 vessels appeared from nothing, their weapons trained on their enemies. But these weren't the ships that had started the battle. Each human vessel bore scars of battles fought across the galaxy in the 3 months since Protocol Omega began. "While you were gathering your fleet for this attack," Admiral Marcus revealed, "our ghost fleet was visiting every Zephyrian military installation in your empire. Your border fortresses, your naval yards, your command centers. They don't exist anymore, Admiral. In 3 months, we dismantled 3,000 years of Imperial military might." Vexitar's exoskeleton went completely transparent, a Zephyrian condition equivalent to complete psychological shock. His empire, his people's dominance, their very identity as galactic powers, all of it had been systematically destroyed while he prepared for what he thought would be a glorious conquest. "The war is over, Admiral," Vasquez announced. "But your choice now will determine whether your people have a future at all." 5 years had passed since the Battle of Sol, and the galaxy was a fundamentally different place. Admiral Vextar, once the proud commander of the Zephyrian Empire's greatest fleet, now served as a liaison officer aboard the human vessel New Harmony. His crystalline exoskeleton had permanently shifted to the humble grays of acceptance, colors that once would have brought shame to any Imperial officer. Captain Elena Vasquez, now promoted to Admiral, walked the corridors of her flagship with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen the galaxy transform. The New Harmony was humanity's newest class of vessel, designed not for war, but for the complex task of galactic reconstruction. "Admiral," Vextar approached with the respectful posture humans had taught him, "the morning briefing is ready. We have responses from 17 more systems requesting to join the Terran Galactic Union." Elena nodded. The irony wasn't lost on her that the former enemy who had once planned humanity's extinction now served as one of their most trusted advisors. But that was the nature of the new galaxy humanity was building, one where redemption was possible for those willing to embrace it. The briefing room contained representatives from dozens of species, all working together under human leadership. The Altarian bird-like creatures with their brilliant plumage sat beside the silicon-based Christech entities. Former Zephyrian officers worked alongside humans to coordinate relief efforts across the galaxy. "Status report, Commander Singh," Elena requested as she took her position at the head of the conference table. Commander Raj Singh, one of humanity's finest diplomatic officers, activated the holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. "Admiral, reconstruction efforts in the former Zephyrian territories are proceeding ahead of schedule. We've restored basic infrastructure to 43 systems and established peaceful governance structures in 31. The transformation had been necessary and inevitable. When humanity's ghost fleet finished dismantling the Zephyrian Empire's military infrastructure, they had left behind a power vacuum that threatened to plunge dozens of worlds into chaos. Unlike the Zephyrians, however, Humanity had not sought to rule through fear and domination. Instead, they had implemented what historians would later call the Great Restoration, a galaxy-wide effort to rebuild civilization based on cooperation, mutual respect, and shared prosperity. It was the largest humanitarian effort in galactic history, and it was being led by the same species that had demonstrated the most devastating military capabilities ever witnessed. "What's the situation with the Andromedan refugees?" Elena asked. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walsh, one of humanity's xenobiological specialists, stood to present her report. "Admiral, all 30,000 refugees from the Andromedan system have been successfully relocated. We've established 3 new colony worlds specifically designed to meet their environmental needs. Early reports suggest they're adapting well to the new settlements." Elena smiled. The Andromedan situation had been one of the first tests of humanity's new approach to galactic leadership. When their home system's star began showing signs of instability, the proud Andromedans had initially refused human assistance, preferring to face extinction with dignity rather than accept help from what they considered an upstart species. It had taken months of patient diplomacy to convince them that accepting aid wasn't a sign of weakness. Now, their relocated colonies were among the most prosperous in the Union, and Andromedan engineers were contributing to terraforming projects across the galaxy. Vextar stood to give his portion of the briefing. "Admiral, I've completed my analysis of the hegemony situation. The Corvat hegemony is showing increasing signs of aggression toward their neighbors. Intelligence suggests they're testing the Union's commitment to protecting smaller species." Elena's expression hardened slightly. The Corvat hegemony was one of the few remaining aggressive powers in the galaxy, a collection of militaristic worlds that viewed humanity's peace-building efforts as weakness to be exploited. "What's your recommendation, Vextar?" The former Zephyrian admiral's response would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. "Admiral, I believe we should offer the hegemony the same choice we offered my people: peaceful integration into the galactic community, or face the consequences of continued aggression." Elena nodded. It was a testament to how much Vextar had changed that he now advocated for the same diplomatic approach that had once seemed so foreign to his warrior culture. "I agree, but with one modification. Before we issue any ultimatums, I want to try something different. Vextar, how would you feel about leading a diplomatic mission to the hegemony?" The question clearly surprised the former admiral. His exoskeleton flickered through several colors before settling back to gray. "Admiral, I am honored by your confidence. But why would you trust me with such an important mission?" Elena's answer revealed the depth of humanity's new approach to galactic relations. "Because you understand both perspectives, Vextar. You know what it's like to believe that strength comes only through domination. But you also know what we're offering as an alternative. Who better to convince them than someone who made the same journey? The mission to the Corvat hegemony would become one of the defining moments of the new galactic order." Vextar's ship, escorted by a small human fleet, arrived at the hegemony's capital world of Korath Prime. The Corvat leaders, tall reptilian beings with a culture built around conquest and expansion, initially dismissed the diplomatic overture. "We will not bow to human authority," declared Supreme Commander Thector, his scaled hide showing the aggressive patterns that marked Corvat battle readiness. "Your species may have defeated the weak Zephyrians, but the hegemony has never known defeat." Vextar's response carried the weight of bitter experience. "Commander, I once stood where you stand now. I believed that strength came from conquest, that peace was weakness, that my people were destined to rule. I was wrong about everything." The negotiations lasted for days, with Vextar sharing his perspective on what the galaxy had become under human leadership. He spoke of worlds where former enemies now worked together, of technologies shared freely between species, of conflicts resolved through dialogue rather than warfare. The humans could have destroyed us completely, Vextar explained during a private conversation with Thector. They had the power to reduce every Zephyrian world to ash. Instead, they helped us rebuild. They gave us purpose beyond conquest. Commander, I have seen what happens when humanity decides to make war. But I have also seen what happens when they decide to make peace. Both are equally impressive. The breakthrough came when Vextar arranged for a delegation of Corvat leaders to visit several Union worlds. They saw former Zephyrian colonies where the population lived in prosperity they had never known under Imperial rule. They witnessed joint research projects between species that had been enemies for centuries. They observed the massive construction projects that were transforming barren worlds into garden paradises. Most importantly, they met with leaders from dozens of species who all told the same story. Humanity had offered them a choice between cooperation and destruction, and those who chose cooperation discovered a galaxy full of possibilities they had never imagined. Supreme Commander Thector's decision to join the Union wasn't immediate, but when it came, it marked the end of the last major military threat in the known galaxy. The hegemony's integration wasn't without challenges. Their warrior culture required careful channeling into constructive purposes, but within 2 years, former Corvat raiders were serving as protectors for exploration missions into uncharted space. Elena stood once again on the observation deck of her flagship, but now she looked out at a very different galaxy. The new Harmony was part of a massive fleet, not of warships, but of exploration and construction vessels. They were heading toward the Galactic Rim, where long-range sensors had detected signs of a previously unknown civilization. Vexitar joined her at the observation window. Admiral, are you concerned about first contact with this new species? Elena considered the question carefully. Not concerned exactly, but mindful. We've proven that humanity can be a force for peace and prosperity in this galaxy. Now we need to prove we can extend that same opportunity to species beyond our current borders. The former Zephyrian admiral's exoskeleton shifted to thoughtful blues and greens. The preliminary sensor data suggests they are a highly advanced civilization, more advanced than any species we've encountered. Which means they could be a threat, Elena acknowledged. Or they could be the key to advancing the entire galaxy to new levels of achievement. We won't know until we try diplomacy first. As if summoned by their conversation, Commander Singh approached with a data pad. Admiral, long-range communications has successfully established contact with the new civilization. They call themselves the Eternal Collective, and they're requesting a formal diplomatic meeting. Elena smiled. After 5 years of rebuilding the galaxy, humanity was about to face its next great test. But this time, they wouldn't be facing it alone. The combined knowledge and experience of dozens of species, all working together under human leadership, would be brought to bear on the challenge of peaceful first contact. Signal the fleet, Elena ordered. We're going to show the Eternal Collective what the galaxy can accomplish when different species work together instead of against each other. As the fleet moved toward its destination, Vextar reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. 5 years ago, he had been the proud admiral of an empire built on conquest and domination. Today, he was part of something far greater. A galactic civilization built on cooperation and mutual respect. The transformation hadn't been easy. Many Zephyrians had struggled to find their place in a galaxy where strength was measured by contribution rather than conquest. But those who embraced the change discovered opportunities they had never imagined under the old imperial system. Former warriors became engineers, building the infrastructure for new worlds. Military strategists became diplomatic advisors, helping to resolve conflicts without bloodshed. Scientists, who had once developed weapons of war, now worked on projects to extend life and expand knowledge. Admiral, Vextar said quietly, I want you to know that I understand now what you meant when you said humanity had chosen kindness because you were strong enough to choose it. It takes greater strength to build than to destroy, greater courage to trust than to fear. Elena nodded. And that's why what we're building will last, Vextar. The old empires fell because they were built on fear and domination. What we're creating is built on something much stronger, the understanding that we're all better when we work together. The New Harmony and its fleet continued their journey toward the Galactic Rim, carrying with them the hopes and dreams of dozens of species. Behind them lay a galaxy transformed, where former enemies now worked as allies, where technology and knowledge were shared freely, and where conflicts were resolved through dialogue and cooperation rather than warfare. Ahead lay the unknown, but humanity and their allies faced it with confidence born of experience. They had learned that kindness backed by strength was the most powerful force in the galaxy. They had discovered that the choice between war and peace wasn't always in their hands, but the choice of how to respond always was. The galaxy would never again see the likes of the Zephyrian Empire or other civilizations built on conquest and domination. In their place rose something unprecedented in galactic history, a true union of species working together toward common goals of prosperity, knowledge, and peace. And at the heart of it all was a species that had learned to be strong enough to choose kindness, wise enough to prepare for war, and patient enough to always try diplomacy first. Humanity had indeed ended their age of kindness that day 5 years ago. But what they built in its place was something far more valuable, a galaxy where kindness was backed by the strength to protect it.